Mochen im Summen, Lekayim, gewaltige Mitzvah. Heilige Tu Bishvat, Rabbi say, just a few inyonim before we start with the payers. The Heilige Rishona was makbid to wear dafke Shabbos clothing on Tu Bishvat, and he said that since Chazal tell us very clearly that Tu Bishvat is the Rosh Hashanah Leilonos for the trees, and the Pasuk tells us that an Odom is doime to a tree, therefore there's no real nafkamina between a tree and an Odom. It's a Rosh Hashanah, it's a Yom Adin, it's a Yom Tov. The Rishona was very makbid on to eat dafke Peiros Eretz Yisrael. During Tu Bishvat he held it was a skula for Yerushalayim. And it's interesting, they bring down that the Heilige Rishona didn't make a Sud on Tu B'Av. Shabbat versteht sich, is a gewaltige Yom Tov, it's a Simcha, but he made on Tu Bishvat. And they asked, what's Pshat? He made on Tu Bishvat, but not on Tu B'Av. Why? So Rav Yaakov of Sadigeh once explained Pshat, because Tu B'Av is a preparation for Yomim Noroyim, which goes on our spiritual well-being. And therefore we don't have to have a Suda for a spiritual well-being. Whereas Tu Bishvat is about the preparation for Purim, for Pesach, which is about our physical well-being, Purim and Pesach. Mimela, because of that, he was dafka makbid to make a Suda, to have a Suda on Tu Bishvat. Rav Meir Arik Zatzal brings a Mordika Maisa from the Heilige Baal Shem Tov HaKodesh. He says like this: when the Baal Shem Tov started the Inyan of Chasidus, there was obviously versteht sich, there were a lot of people who were not so happy, and they called in the Baal Shem Tov to a Beis Din in Brot. They called him to Beis Din. The Baal Shem Tov made his way to the Beis Din. It was the middle of the winter, mamish bang smack in the middle of the winter. He went together with one of his Talmidim, Rav Zev Kizitz, and the roads at the time were very, very icy, very snowy. It was gefährlich to travel in those times. And it was on Tu Bishvat. One specific day was Tu Bishvat, and the Baal Shem Tov realized, I don't have any fruits. What am I going to do? It's Tu Bishvat. So what the Baal Shem Tov did is he went over to one of the trees that had no leaves. Mamish nothing, empty, dry, old tree, no shaykhs. Nothing was growing on such a tree. And he began to start singing the Yomim Noroyim, the Rosh Hashanah Nigunim. Specifically, he started to be mispalel that everyone and every creation in the world should realize for what they were created for. And within a few moments, all of a sudden, fresh dates started to sprout from the tree, and he was zoiche to have fresh dates for Tu Bishvat. So his Talmud said, this is gewaldig. Let me take these dates, and I'll take them to Beis Din in Brod, and we'll show the Olam, listen, this is not Stam Yid, this is not Stam Rav, this is a Tzaddik, a Goy Notzim, and you can't mess with him. If he's doing something, it must be it's right. So he took a bunch of dates, and he put it into one of his bags. He said, we'll take it to Beis Din, and we'll show Beis Din that, they could do something. And this Baal Shem Tov is not worth starting with. He got to Beis Din, opened up the box, all excited to show everybody, look what the Baal Shem Tov can do in the middle of winter. Who ever heard of dates? Wasn't the Geya fresh dates in the middle of the winter? It's not the Geya, must be it's an ace. So he opened it to show the Olam, the Beis Din, like, who is the Baal Shem? And he saw nothing. There was a bunch of juice there was nothing going on over there. And the Baal Shem said to him, I want you to know something. We're not going to win this war through Nisim and Niflos. We're going to win it by showing we're doing the right thing. If it's emes, then avada, we're going to do it. So the kasha is, why are we eating fruits? What's the Inyan of fruits before we partake of the fruits? Why dafka are we eating fruits? It's a beautiful thing. Avada, we mentioned this morning from the Heilige Yerushalmi, Magen Avraham brings it in Kuf Lamed Aleph, that we want to be nana from Olam Hazeh, we want to see the Rabbeinu Shalom's beautiful fruits. Rav Miller Zatzal was famous. He was once walking in a supermarket, and they saw Rav Miller in a supermarket, and he was walking, aisle by aisle, looking at all the fruits and the vegetables and everything. They said, Rabbi, is everything okay? Can we get you something? And he said, no, I'm just looking at the Rabbeinu Shalom's creations. I'm appreciating the beautiful, the colors, the shapes, the textures. Each one has got its own beauty. And that's taka a beautiful thing, to think about all the fruits that the Rabbeinu Shalom has given us. That's taka the Yerushalmi, Mesechtes Kedushin, to realize everything the Rabbeinu Shalom has given us. But there's another pshat also that maybe we could say. Reb Leibel Aiga was the son of Reb Kiva Eiga. The son of Reb Kiva Eiga, he was a Talmud of the Ishbitzer, and many others as well. He eventually became Hasidish, and he eventually became Kamada Rebbe on his own with thousands of followers. And he writes the following idea of why we eat fruits on Tu Bishvat. He says a modige kasha. If you think about it, why are we eating fruits on Tu Bishvat? Rashi brings down, we all know, we mentioned it this morning, Rashi says, because the sap goes into the tree and it starts to go in, and that's the beginning of the haschala, of the production, of the process of the tree, of the fruits and everything that goes together with that. I don't understand. If you think about it, all the fruits we're eating right now, when were they produced? They're from last year's rain, last year's crop, last year's sap. So why are we celebrating this year's sap with last year's old fruit? It doesn't make any sense. That's the kasha Rabbi Leiba asked. And he answers it with the Gemara in Brachos. Many of us are familiar, we're learning it now, where the Gemara tells us that if a person is nene ma'olam hazeh b'lo bracha, if a person has hana from this world, eats something without a bracha, he is gozel from the Rebbeinu Shalom, he's stealing from Hashem and from Knesset Yisrael and from Klal Yisrael. And Rashi explains over there, what's the pshat? Why is it? What do you mean you're stealing from Klal Yisrael? What are you stealing from Klal Yisrael? Well, I didn't make a bracha on something, that's my problem. What do I steal from Klal Yisrael? So Rashi explains that in fact when you don't make a bracha on something, the fruit doesn't grow as well. So memela, when a person is nana ba'olam hazeh b'lo bracha, he's poshet stopping the fruits from growing. The fruit is mamish suffering because he didn't make a bracha on that. Whereas Rabbi Leiba, the opposite obviously is also true, Mida Tova Meruba, which means that when a person does make a bracha properly, so he's giving the energy to the fruit to be able of this year to be able to grow properly. So Memela on Tu Bishvat, which is the beginning of the new development of the fruit for this year, the sap's going up. Therefore, we dafka partake of fruit not for the sake of the fruit, but rather for the sake of the bracha that we make on the fruit. And it should be made with kavana. It should be made with an understanding, with appreciation. Like the Maral writes in Gorarye, how we have to be careful when we make a bracha. And he says that a person has to realize when he makes a bracha, but to realize that every bracha that he makes is being moided to the Rabbeinu Shalom for everything that he's given and everything that he gets. And that's the pshat where we eat fruits on Tu B'Shvat. To end with one last idea, the Torah tells us that the Nachash, the snake, incited Adam and Chava to do the first Avera, to eat from the forbidden fruit that they weren't allowed to eat from, and because of that they had tremendous amount of tsar and misfortune that came down to the world. Now the snake needed punishing. What was the snake's punishment? The Torah tells us his sentence was very simple. From now on, the snake would eat from the dust of the earth. That's it. From now on, he'd go on the floor and just eat a bit of dirt, a bit of dust on the floor. Now you think about it, what's so bad? Right, imagine you're traveling a long journey, you're starving, hungry, you could do with a Coke Zero, freezing cold Coke Zero. What are you going to do? There's nowhere to stop. It's ridiculous. I'm starving, I'm hungry. Well, if you had the klala of the Nachash, you would stop the car, you would get out, you'd bend down on the floor, take a piece of earth, and you would eat. It's a gevaldige zach. What's the klala? What's the greatest klala of the Nachash? Wow, he eats from the dust of the earth. He has food whenever he wants, wherever he wants. It doesn't have to make a difference. Nothing has to be prepared. It's a gevaldige zach. Simcha ben Pshischa says a pshat like this. He says the pshat is a moedige zach. He says, what be'etzem was the klala? The klala was the Rebbeinu Shalom said to the Nachash, I don't want to hear from you ever again. I don't want to hear your tefillahs. I don't want to hear your bakoshas. You never need to ask anything from me ever again. You have all the food you need. You'll never ask anything from me again. I don't want a relationship with you. That means that Klal Yisrael, that Yidden, that human beings that have this ability, that we have to daven for our parnasa, we have to daven for our food, for our sustenance, and specifically our parnasa, our sustenance goes away. You have food, it doesn't get stored. You can't just keep it for months and months on end. Many things, perish after a small amount of time. We have to keep replenishing. We have to keep asking the Rebbeinu Shalom for more and more and more. What does that mean? That means the Rebbeinu Shalom wants our relationship. He wants our tefillahs. He wants our bakoshas. He wants our connection. And that's what we have to think about. Tu B'Shvat, it's a gevaldige day. It's a beautiful day to think for a moment, number one, about the beautiful things that the Rebbeinu Shalom has given us in our own lives, as a klal, as a prat, in our particular personal lives. Look at the beautiful fruit. As Rav Victor Miller said so many times, the Rebbeinu Shalom did not have to create fruit with different colors, different textures, different shapes, different forms, but yet the Rebbeinu Shalom did. Could have made one fruit, it would have been good enough for everyone, but no. The Rebbeinu Shalom B'Rov Chesed gave us unbelievable fruit, beautiful fruit. We make a bracha b'kavana with haidah to the Rebbeinu Shalom for giving us everything we have, not only the fruit but everything in our lives. And we should taka be zeicha that the simcha that we say a bracha today, we should always say a bracha with azar kavana, with azar appreciation. We should be zeicha to mekayim the mitzvahs of Klal Yisrael, the mitzvah of eating the fruit on Tu B'Shvat, and Be'ez Hashem. We should be zeicha that the fruits of our labor, our fruits, ourselves, the odom that's doimet, the eitz hasoda, that we specifically, or be able to sap, the neshama goes in, penetrates more, that Be'ez Hashem, every single one of us will be able to have that beautiful connection with the Rebbeinu Shalom, that incredible Avas Hashem, Yiras Hashem, and connection to everything that goes together with Yiddishkeit, which is exactly what we're doing over here. And B'siyat L'Shmai, we should be Zoicha, Mitzvah Hashem, very soon, to go and dance together with the Bayis Shlishi, B'mheira V'yameinu, Amen.